The 2024 national and provincial election has been concluded, and yesterday we saw the announcement by the IEC that the elections were free and fair. The IEC's commission released the official results at the National Results Operations Centre in Midrand in Johannesburg last night. Now, in his address at the venue, President Ramaphosa said, and I quote, "Through their votes, South Africans have demonstrated clearly and plainly that our democracy is strong, it is robust, and that it endures." And this after the voter turnout for that election was 50.61%, representing 16.2 million South Africans who came out to cast a ballot. Now, to talk to us about the outcome of the 2024 general election, we're joined by Professor Thuli Madonsela, Director at the Centre for Social Justice at Stellenbosch University. Professor Madonsela, thanks for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Sakina. Thank you for the privilege, and good morning to viewers.
Professor Madonsela, so as a South African citizen, I'm really chomping at the bit to hear your analysis on the outcome of this year's national and provincial elections.
Well, it has been quite dramatic. For me, I had done scenarios a couple of weeks ago, and I had anticipated the possibility of the ANC losing a majority but still having most of the votes. I never expected it would be at 40. I think I put it at around 45 or so. And I also did not anticipate the wild card that was MK. But in the end, I now also understand that people got confused. That's why people fight for brands. That's why people will sue you if you have a drink that looks like Coca-Cola. So in this particular case, a whole brand was taken and the person still remained with the ANC. And I was in some space where people were saying, actually, during the canvassing, the MK canvassing group was telling people we still are the ANC, just not the ANC of Ramaphosa. So, yeah, one didn't anticipate that kind of deception, but it's already happened. And the most important thing is people have voted for greater transformation.
And that's the thing, isn't it, Professor? Regardless of how you look at it, there is no outright majority for anybody. And even if the result with MK had gone differently, it still places us at a position, even if the ANC would have then garnered a majority, it would have been an outright majority, but it's also been a reduced majority over years, over several elections that we have seen. And that obviously reflects the will of the South African public. So what do you make of that and the message that we are to read into how the public is voting?
So, Ken, the message that I'm reading is that the majority of South Africans want more change. So if you look at the growth has been around those who promised more change, whether they can achieve that change or they cannot achieve that change, it doesn't matter. People clearly want a change. So MK got nearly 15%. EFF got about 9.5%. Mr. McKenzie got 2-point-something%. So you're looking at, and then the ANC retained 40% with the new program in its manifesto that is for more transformation. So basically, you're talking about nearly 2/3 of the people in this country want greater transformation. On the other hand, what is not being said in the media is that people rejected the regressive agenda that was being offered by the MPC. And if you look at the growth in the DA, it's only growth that is subtracting from the Freedom Front Plus. So, which means it's really regaining people that the DA had lost to the Freedom Front Plus in 2019. And that's marginal growth. But the growth is really people who are saying, we want more change. We want to see less poverty. We want to see more equality. We want to see more improvement in those areas where improvements have not happened yet.
And I suppose that takes us back to a point. Many people have said that this has been a watershed election for South Africa, and this is 30 years on from when all South Africans for the first time had the opportunity to decide on who leads them in this country. And if we look at the hopes, the expectations, the aspirations of South Africa 30 years ago, and we look at where we find ourselves right now, Professor Madonsela, how would you assess our road traveled thus far?
My professional view now, having done an assessment with my team at Stellenbosch University, and more recently with the Tuma team, just listening to people, is that a lot has been achieved. We looked at all of the rights in the Bill of Rights, and we found that progress has been made against each right, percentage-wise. And then there are certain things that have been done for everyone, like free education in several schools, school feeding scheme, grants for children, older persons grant, which used to be very little for Black people. It was equalized with white people, a children's grant included, and the SRD grant included. Housing never used to be owned. People now get to own houses. So a lot of progress has taken place. However, it's not even, Sakina. So there are places that still don't have water because statistics simply tell you there's been progress, but they don't tell you which communities have been left behind. So a lot of the initiatives that have been around growing the middle class, which only grew to about 6 million, according to Karin, I think it's Karin Duplessis, it was a little bit shocking that the Black middle class only grew from about 2 million to 6 million in a country where Black constitutes more than 80% of 60 million people. That growth is too marginal. And what does it mean then? It means we remain the pyramid society that colonialism and apartheid made us to be, and we need to move faster in creating a more diamond-shaped society. And I think people are crying for that. Some are crying for work, but some are crying for pay. So there's confusion about we just need jobs. No, people want a decent life. The majority of people are struggling.
And that's such an important point, Professor Madonsela, because many would have looked to the Constitution, of course, to ensure, greater progress in terms of redress from where we came from to where we find ourselves now. You speak of the middle class and how shockingly slow that growth seems to have been. But even then, one has to question, what do we mean by middle class in South Africa? If someone is 2 paychecks away from joining the ranks of the poor, does that make them middle class? Some would say they rather the precariat. Most of those people in that bracket, they rather precarious, so precariat over middle class. So there's a lot that still needs to happen, and again, people are still waiting for redress. How do you respond to those who say the Constitution is perhaps a stumbling block? Is it? And if so, how? If not, why not, Prof?
Well, I must disclose that I was one of the drafters of the Constitution, and therefore I am likely to defend it. And the Constitutional Court has made it clear that the Constitution not only permits redress or permits positive measures or restitutive measures to address the damage caused by apartheid, colonialism, and patriarchy, but it also makes it compulsory. or peremptory. And these are cases such as Minister of Finance versus Van Heerden, Batusta versus Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, and more recently, Mahlangu versus Minister of Labour. So basically, what needs to happen is that these cases that have come from the Constitutional Court should immediately be made available to members of Parliament as they're being orientated, as they're going through their orientation, to know that taking positive measures to redress the injustices of the past is a must. In the absence of that, all of the promises in the Constitution are meaningless, Sakina, because these human rights are interdependent and they mutually reinforce each other. Why, for example, we haven't made the progress we wanted to make in the workplace is because we have not made enough progress on land. So when we did the study, 30 Days of Democracy Dialogues with the Tuma Foundation and the Center for Social Justice, issues that came up was land. So it's not true that people don't want land, but it's also ridiculous that you have a country where the white community that constitutes less than 9% of the population holds 72% of urban land, 75% of rural land, and Africans hold or own only 4% of land. So that's not sustainable, especially in a country where the whole cry, the whole struggle in this country was not about jobs, although jobs are now important. The struggle was about land and economic rights. And both of those were unjustly taken, not through war and conquest, through abuse of the law. And therefore, we need to increase pace incredibly on land, economic inclusion and parity, anti-poverty, and work, not just jobs, because a lot of people are working but poor. That's why poverty is at 62%.